Let's consider the function f of x equals x squared. And we'll find four things. First, we'll find f of 3, then we'll find f of 3 plus h, and then we'll find f of 3 plus h, and then we'll find f of 3 plus f of h. Now, all four of these can be done in any order, but we'll just do them in the order. So first of all, f of 3. Okay, this is the little warm-up. We have here a function. Think of this like a procedure, right? This function f is telling us if you have an input, like here we have this input 3, then you should take that input and take that input that's still represented here with an x and square it, right? So that extra that's gone in, and so we have here 3 squared, right? Notice how simple. Sorry about that. Notice how similar this and this look, right? So there's no f here because there's no f there. That's one way to think of it anyway. And we just applied this procedure, right? This procedure that's being described here says take whatever you're given, call it, if it's called x, take it and then square it. So in our example, we took this input of 3, that's what we were given, we took it and we squared it. And that's really the end. I guess all we can do at this point is simplify 3 squared as a 9, and we're done for that problem. For part B, we'll take the same function and do the following. It says f of 3 plus h, and based on where the plus sign is, I'd like to write the plus sign first. We really have two separate problems. We have whatever f of 3 is, which we actually just did, and then we have whatever h is. So they're really sort of two separate parts. So since the plus sign is written, let's look here. First, we have f of 3. Well, f of 3, we saw what we should do is to replace this f of 3 with 9. Or let's just write some steps out. But f of 3 can be replaced with 3 squared because f of x is x squared. Then after the plus sign here, there's an h. Well, we were given no information about h, so our simplification of that is just to write h. This h here is to account for that. There. That's it. I guess all we can do is simplify the 3 squared as 9 and still write this plus h to respect this equal sign here, but that is about it for that one. Part C is a little different. I want to go back and just mention that what we do here is we take the input, we take our input and square it, and in part A, our input was 3. Right? Our input is what's stuck between the parentheses. So if we take a look at part C, our input is no longer 3 like it was in part A. Now our input is this whole thing there. Our input is 3 plus h. And what does the function do? This function takes its input and squares it, right? Put and square the input. So in this case, we take this input plus h and we square it. Compare really, really look. Let's do this another. Compare how this part is written with how that part is written right there, right? The 3, 3 squared. Okay, 3 plus h, so 3 plus h squared. A function really, quite literally, since the input here was 3 plus h, we take 3 plus h and square it. You might even look back at the previous question and say, wait, how come you didn't do that here? Well, the plus h is not part of the input. The input is stuck between the parentheses, so the input was what was just to compare. Okay, so let's go to different ink. Excuse me. It is a common misconception that you can take an exponent and distribute, but you can't do that if there's a plus sign right there. That's not allowed. What we can do to write this differently though, is 3 plus h quantity squared. So squaring something means multiply that thing by itself. So 3 plus h times 3 plus h. And then we can go ahead and expand. Take 9 plus 3h plus another 3h plus h squared, which we could go ahead and simplify as 9 plus 6h plus h squared. You know what? Let's just do here. 9 plus 6h plus h squared. Finally, part D. Part D, so again, there's this plus sign that's not part of the input, right? We can really write the plus sign first. There, we wrote that plus sign. Now f of 3, well, for f of 3, we've done this now. f of 3 we can replace with 3 squared. F of h we can replace with h squared. So here we applied the function once, we applied the function a second. So this procedure of taking whatever the input is and squaring it, we did this twice. Right? Once with the input of 3, got that. Once with the input of h, and got that. In terms of any simplifying that we do, all that we really can do at this point is, like earlier, simplify the 3 squared as a 9, so 9 plus h squared. And that is really about it. Now, this will be the time to point out, let's box the final answers, even though this is kind of rare for me to do. With 9 plus h. Here our final answer was 9 plus 6h plus h squared, and here final answer was 9 plus 8 squared. And I thought I'd mention this because there are some common errors that occur. So often people will take the question in part C, which was f of 3 plus h. And one thing people will be tempted to do is to somehow move that h on the outside. People will typically write things like f of 3 plus h. Or might skip a step, right? Like might not write this step, but might end up writing 3 squared plus h or something like that, right? But that's you don't want to take this plus h and move this up, right? The 3 plus h here really is the input. Somebody who ends up moving this plus h on the outside ends up with, well, really that answer, right? That is supposed to be different. Another common error that occurs is we'll take, again, the thing given in part C, and we'll sometimes distribute the function and turn this into f of 3 plus f, but that is not allowed either, right? And that is why part C and part D, though they look like they ought to give the same answer, you can see here that they do not. Please be. For another thing I have here, it was already mentioned over here, but sometimes people take 3. This is not so much to do with functions, but it's good algebra for you anyway. People will sometimes take 3 plus h quantity squared, and we already said it, but people will write instead of 9 plus h squared. And really all this is doing is, this is somebody who's kind of skipping a step, to be really honest, where they were, so to speak, distributing, right? Distributing this exponent into these two spots. You cannot do this when you have a plus sign here. So while these two are equal, the problem is right there. So these two are not equal, so we can't do that. Finally, another type of error that is sort of typical is people will take something like f of 3 plus h, the question that's right there, and people will be tempted to turn this into something like f of 3 plus h squared. So I get that people are putting in the square because the square right there, but if the squaring happened, then the procedure f has been applied, and so it should not be mentioned at this point anymore, right? So it is rather an error to have that f right there. Get rid of that. The point is, if you so let's write this clearly, right? If you have f of 3 plus h, you don't want to write. So there's an error in writing. Let's write this. To write f of 3 plus h squared is an, and then in blue, let's write them is either f of 3 plus h, that's the original question, or 3 plus h quantity squared. Okay, but the point is, it's got to be, it's one or the other. You either have the f with no square there, or because you've applied what f is up here, which is to square its input, then there's a square, but no longer an f.